Brain fog remedies. So this is for the person who has focus, concentration, memory, anxiety, inappropriate responses to stressors, feeling overwhelmed, just not being focused, not having good recall, forgetting the words, coming out of the shopping department store or the grocery store and not knowing where you put your vehicle, being in the middle of a sentence and forgetting what you were going to be saying, going into a room and forgetting what you were going to get. Where are your car keys? Where are your wallet? Where's your cell phone? Feeling overwhelmed. If this is what you're dealing with, it can be very disconcerting. On top of that, maybe you're fatigued, maybe you're crashing in the middle of the day, maybe you're not sleeping, probably not getting up with an abundance of energy. If those are like, yeah, then I know who you are. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I've suffered with those problems with my own health, and I help clients all over the world with these same challenges. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel so that we can continue to provide you with proper solutions on how you can go about getting your health back. So today I want to talk to you about brain fog remedies. So the two things I want you to think about, two things: fuel and activation. Fuel and activation. So when we think about fuel, the main two things we think about that are nutrients, and we can get into that in this video, and we think about oxygen. Fuel, we think about nutrients and oxygen. And activation, we'll get there in a second. So if we talk about fuel, what are we talking about in fuel? Well, we're talking about getting enough macronutrients. And you know, when I work with clients and they're very, very sophisticated and they're looking at their health, maybe they're looking at their hormones, maybe they're doing research online, perhaps they heard of this thing called MTHFR and they've done a genetic test, and they know a lot more than their doctors. They're very, very sophisticated, and their doctors don't tell them that anything is wrong, or they don't believe them, or they're told that their tests are normal and they're not taken seriously. And then potentially their friends and family, because you've had to isolate yourself or because you've had to cancel at the last moment, or people just don't understand. It can be very, very lonely and very, very isolating. And what I tell people is, instead of going down those major rabbit holes of understanding things that doctors should be telling you, I want you to think about the big rocks. So if you're filling up this glass jar and it only has a certain amount of stuff that it can handle, you wouldn't put the water in there first, you wouldn't put the sand in there first, you'd put the big rocks in there first, the things that need to go in first and need to be dealt with. That would be the analogy I use when you're talking about brain fog remedies and you're looking for big hinges or big hinges that swing doors. And what that would mean, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that fuel, in terms of macronutrients, are you getting enough macronutrients? Meaning, are you getting enough protein, carbs, and fats? I know for myself, when I'm stressed out, I tend to eat less. And then I potentially tend to binge. And I tend to have sugary foods, or I have a lot of caffeine, and I'm not getting good quality macronutrients. I'm not getting enough protein, carbs, and fats. As a rule of thumb, what I tell people is whatever you weigh and what you want to weigh. So let's say someone weighs 100 pounds. Or they want to weigh 100 pounds. They're a light person, they're a slight frame. This is just easy for math's sake. And they weigh 120. Their ideal weight would be 100. And then thereby I would times that by 12. And that would be 1,200. So they should be getting 1,200 calories per day. And a lot of the times when I talk to my clients and I ask them about, hey, how many calories are you getting per day? They don't know. And then when they start to track, they start to see that they're really low on those calories and they're not getting enough. So I want you to think, am I getting enough calories? And some people who have challenges with weight loss, perhaps they're getting too much calories. And that can be very inflammatory, that can drive up your insulin levels, that can create inflammation, and then that can create brain fog. So it's really important to go on either side. But whatever you want to weigh, times it by 12, figure out that's your total amount of calories, do 2 or 3 days of tracking to figure out where you are, and make sure, hey, you know what, I need to get more. We could talk about the percentages of protein, carbs, and fats. We could talk about micronutrients in terms of, hey, it has to have really good quality B vitamins. I'll get into that in a second for you. It has to have good quality minerals. There should be a lot of fiber. There should be good B vitamins in there. And there should be lots of colors. So yellow, red, green, orange, lots of purple. These are different things that are going to have bioflavonoids that are going to help you ultimately have enough quality of nutrients, quantity of nutrients, so that you are going to have the fuel to make the brain work effectively. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is oxygen. Oxygen. And this is underappreciated in terms of, well, I breathe every day. If I don't breathe, I don't live, which is true. But good quality oxygen, good quality breathing. There's lots of videos out there on how to breathe through your nose and out through your mouth, or in your nose, out through your mouth. There's boxed breathing where you have a 4-second in, you count for 4 seconds, a 4-second out, you hold for 4 seconds, 4 seconds in, you count, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, you hold. And a lot of people can't do that 4 seconds out and then hold for 4 seconds. And they teach that in the military for the troops to be able to control themselves in stressful situations. So that's getting more oxygen. Also, activity and movement are very, very key in getting that fuel delivery. So those are two major things in terms, I know I'm not giving you any cracking the atom advice here, but it's very common things that we're putting rocks into the container first before we get into the minutia of other things. The other thing I wanted to say is B vitamins. So if I were to draw here, like how do we produce energy? We basically produce energy from the foods we eat. We just talked about that, protein, carbs, and fats. But in order to get those into the water wheel, if you will, imagine one of those old power boats that didn't have a motor, but it had one of those water wheels where it was spinning, and that was like those gambling boats, and that's powered by the force of nature, if you will. That's how our cells work. And they need fuel for that to go in, which is the water, to turn the wheel to produce energy. And one of the major things that I find that people are depleted, especially because they're stressed out, is their B vitamins. And they're not eating healthy B vitamins in their foods, which are mostly the leafy greens or the lots of the colors of the rainbow. They're eating a lot of potentially grains, which is driving up their insulin levels, and maybe they're eating too much. And when you're stressed out, that's going to deplete your B vitamins. I'm going to put a link in this video to my favorite B vitamin source. It's a live source B vitamin nutrient that can help you power your brain before you get into 1,001 different supplements. That would be one of the bigger rocks that I would put in the bucket. So let's summarize. In order to help your brain fog, you have to work on two major things: fuel and activation. On the fuel side, we look in terms of our macronutrients. We want to make sure we're getting enough macronutrients that are healthy. They're not too much, they're not too little. Whatever your ideal weight is, you want to times that by 12. That's a really good rule of thumb. The other thing we want to look at is in terms of our oxygenation, making sure we're moving, making sure we're doing controlled breathing, making sure that we are combining all of those. And then lastly, B vitamins. If someone were to ask me, hey, what do you think is one of the most important nutrients, even if you didn't know me, I would say B vitamins. Because if you're stressed out and potentially you're overwhelmed and you're not focused and you're not concentrated, then you need to get a real live source B vitamin that's not synthetic, that's not fortified, that's not from your enriched foods. And you'll see the needle start to move in terms of those brain fog. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense to you. The other thing we didn't say is the activation. So the fuel part is, the fuel is when I get good quality macros, good quality oxygen. The activation, so what is the activation? Well, that's like doing bicep curls. If I want to have big biceps, I do bicep curls because that works the muscle. If I want to activate my brain, I start to do like those word puzzles. I start to do some planning. Maybe I do a little bit of arithmetic, or maybe I go on and there's a lot of different apps out there. Maybe I am doing problem solving. I'm engaging in conversation. I'm envisioning, and I think that's a really good one, is envisioning. If you're goal setting, if you're goal planning, if you are thinking about step 1, step 2, step 3, if you are starting to make conscientious muscle flexes of the brain, so to speak, then that is going to help you move it or lose it. Unfortunately, I have Alzheimer's that run in my family, and I remember my grandmother, who really was a sweet lady, she had Alzheimer's, and she was very isolated. She didn't go out, she didn't have a lot of stimulation, she didn't do a lot of activities, and that's like someone who doesn't work their muscles. It's gonna atrophy. And if you're not getting proper oxygenation and fuel, then you're gonna have brain fog issues. And these are the great brain fog remedies that I suggest. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you give me a comment, a like, a share. Go check us out at The Truth About Adrenal Fatigue. And I look forward to ending your brain fog remedy nightmare.